Is our political system apt for a crisis of this dimension?
I've actually been thinking about that quite a lot, because we're seeing now that business leaders who are not wedded to fossil fuel are in fact far more ambitious and far more urgent than a significant number of governments. There's something about the elected system cycle, if you like, the democratic cycle to the next election, the next 6 months maybe, the next 3 years, but very rarely beyond 5 years. And it's very hard for politicians to take hard decisions. And many governments are in coalition, so it's even harder to do the really brave thing. And I think what we need is far, far more discussion with populations. Take, for example, my own country, Ireland. We are very slow on climate. And what helped a lot was a citizens' assembly that was established for a number of things. It dealt with some hard issues. And the first one was climate change. The second one was same-sex marriage. And the third one was to remove the ban on divorce from our constitution. And in all three, this citizens' assembly gave us a go-ahead, if you like, of very thoughtful recommendations. And then the normal parliamentary committee took on the recommendations of the citizens' assembly, and we got a cross-party, which is vital, that it doesn't become a divisive issue.
We are hearing statesmen, all of them paraphrasing Greta Thunberg. Now, it's wonderful, but it is quite worrisome when you see that basically throughout the world, the leading voice in this choir is a 16-year-old. What is this telling you?
So what the children have done, and school children all over the world, and not just in developed countries, they're doing it in African countries, they're doing Latin, they're doing it in different places, but in particular in the developed world, is they are saying, we have actually woken up to the fact that you are not being responsible and ensuring that we have a safe future. And it's very devastating, it's very truth to power, it's short sentences. I mean, Greta Thunberg is the best of it, and I was in the climate, when she spoke in the plenary, and I was crying at the end. It's something, it's hard to say, but...
So you clearly believe in the streets and the power of that so-called revolution to truly make the change. Otherwise you don't see a way out.
Yeah, I not only believe in it, I'm actively trying to be a small helper of it. There was a People's Summit just before the Climate Summit, where Amnesty and Greenpeace and 350.org and faith leaders and philanthropy, I think, were all gathering, and business wasn't there as visibly, but business wants in on that kind of an alliance, and investment communities. I've attended all of the conferences since Copenhagen. I was struck by the fact that ministers from the developed world, or even the big emitters, didn't have any pressure. It was the small island states and the least developed countries who were desperate to get a solution. Leading up to Paris and at Paris, I mean, you remember the mantra in Paris, 1.5 to stay alive. And that was the desperation. Those presidents of small island states, I had been to Fiji, I'd been to Samoa when I had my mandate as the special representative of the Secretary General on climate change. They couldn't go back without that new goal, staying below 2 degrees and working for 1.5. And what I love about the children and the school children and young people is they're saying, don't listen to us, listen to the science. And that's the science of the report last October about we have to stay, the whole world has to stay at 1.5 or below, and that means we have to reduce by 45% our greenhouse gas emissions. And then we had the report in May on the extinction of species. Science has made these imperative now, and we really have to take them as the frameworks that help us to move forward to where we need to get to if we implement in full. And, governments are reporting under the 2030 agenda in July here in New York to the high-level political forum, but their populations don't even know they're reporting. That's why it's so important to get this movement. That's why, I keep saying 3 steps to everyone. Make climate change personal in your life, get angry with those who don't take their responsibility, and get active and support those who are trying to help, and then imagine this world that we have to hurry towards. Because if we're not imagining that world, we're not going to be proactively wanting it.
You became emotional when you recalled
Yes.
what happened with the children. In the big scope of things, from a historical perspective, how do you see this? Is this the deepest or most significant crisis we are facing?
I think it is. The time before this, I don't like to, feel that I'm getting emotional as you describe it, but the time before this was in August, when I was in Iceland for a memorial for a glacier that was becoming extinct. A poet from Iceland had put a plaque. I think it got a lot of publicity. And I was there, and I got emotional when I was speaking, because I thought, how can we have a funeral for nature? I mean, what is happening? I think it is. It's the existential threat to a livable world for our children and grandchildren as soon as that.
But it's interesting that also in Drawdown,
Yes.
an interesting book with quite a few solutions.
I'm a great fan of Drawdown.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, the interesting point is that they're talking about also women, but empowering women in terms of education. You have millions of women that are marginalized, and if you do secure their education, not only in terms of demographics, but rather also in terms of empowerment, it is a game changer.
Yes, I thought it was very interesting when that Drawdown report came out, and I looked at, I think it's about the 10 priorities, and educating girls and women, particularly educating girls, is about 5 or 6, I think, and reproductive health and family planning access is about 6 or 7. They're virtually together. But if you take them together, they're right at the top of dealing with climate change. And I keep giving that answer when I'm asked quite often at conferences, what about population control? Which is the wrong question, but it is an important issue. At the moment, African countries are not able to develop fully because their populations increase their capacity to develop. Women would like to space their children, but there are 200 million women in the world today who have unmet needs, who cannot get access to family planning, don't know how to do it, and can't get the means to do it. And there's a gag rule that President Trump has reintroduced more broadly to prevent any kind of advice of that kind being available. If you take African countries, the population will double by 2050. I mean, I can see a parallel between Malawi and my own country, Ireland. In the 1960s, both countries had a population of about 3 million. Ours has gone up to almost 5 million. Malawi is already 15 million plus and will be 50 million by 2050. Now, how do you plan for that when you're a poor country, buffeted as they were recently by this cyclone, Idle, which hit Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe, and it was devastating. They also have drought in other parts of the country. How do you do it?
The very framework of capitalism, how do you view it? Is this, we are in a transitional point?
I do think we need to think deeply about systems change, meaning we cannot continue to extract from Mother Earth the way we are doing. We cannot continue to consume and produce the way we do. I mean, we're encouraged by Black Fridays and all kinds of things. Go out and shop. It's good for the economy. That can no longer continue. When I was growing up, we were taught to darn, to sew on buttons. My brothers, I had 4 brothers, they had hand-me-down clothes. I'm actually into slow fashion now. I don't buy as much, genuinely, because I feel we need to reuse, and I also think we need to buy more from second-hand shops and do as the beginnings of a circular economy. We need slow food. Ela Bat has spoken, she's a fellow elder. So we do need a transition. We need to manage that transition so that we don't collapse economies, that we move forward. When I hear Greta Thunberg, I do feel emotional, because I feel for that future for my 6 grandchildren who are aged between 15 and 2 years old. And the 2-year-old was out marching in Ireland. So,